Hi, and welcome to Thriver TV, the place to break free from narcissistic abuse with quantum tools and understandings. So today's Thriver TV show is part 2 of clearing our susceptibility to narcissists, poor boundary function. And I'm really excited to be doing this Thriver TV episode because last week so many of you really related to the boundary vid. And this is where we're going to have a look at how do we set boundaries. So just to recap on part 1, what we really learnt and discovered was that boundaries are all about keeping the good in and they're keeping the bad out. And we really haven't been taught about psychological, emotional, and psychic boundaries. And what we might have realized is that what we've been doing is really succumbing and being derailed to those big fears that we can have in our bodies, those fears of being criticized and abandoned or rejected or punished or even annihilated if we stand up and we express our values and our rights on things. And maybe because we had other people taking care of our own identity from a young age, we weren't able to really establish an identity yet and work out what our values and our rights are. And we may have also realized that we've been organizing around other people and fitting in with them in order to try and get love and approval and security and survival, hoping that they'll provide it for us if we're just going along with their version of life and their values and their truths. And we've been seriously diminishing our own as a result of doing that. And we've realized that when we've been standing up and arguing back and we've been lecturing and prescribing and justifying and trying to make people get it, that the things that we've been saying no to, we've actually been saying yes to. We've been creating and co-generating them and keeping them alive in our life. So we realize with all of this that something has got to change, that there's something about our boundary function that hasn't been working for us. And that's what I'm really excited to take you through today, is to go through the steps so that you can understand what boundaries really are and how to go about setting them. So let's start off with step number 1. Now, step number 1 is when we have a trigger in our body. Now, as soon as we have a trigger, we have a boundary violation. And I'm going to explain this to you. So that trigger is a signal. I want you to think of something like the roof of your home. If you were to wake up in the morning and there's a puddle of water on your floor and you look up and you see drip, drip, drip coming down from your ceiling, okay, your roof has been compromised. The signal is there's a puddle of water on your floor, something's wrong. Now, if you were to just ignore that, things are going to get worse and eventually your whole roof might cave in. Now imagine your car and you're driving along and you start hearing these really weird grating noises in your engine. Would you ignore it? Would you just keep driving? If you did, the motor inevitably is going to break down. Something's wrong. These are all of your signals telling you that there's something wrong. Now, this is the really insane thing that just floors me. You know, the more that I realize about this stuff is that in our human condition, we've been taught that when we have a trigger, to get out of it, to ignore it. So we're going to try and distract ourselves from it. We're going to watch TV. We're going to ring a friend. We might go out and get drunk. We might eat some more chocolate cake. We might have a cigarette. We might go and have sex with somebody. We might go shopping and buy a whole heap of clothes. Or we might just medicate ourselves. And all of those earlier things I said, they're all choices of self-medication anyway. So what we're really looking to do is to numb out the trigger, to shut it up and ignore it. And the thing is, no different from our roof and our car. Are you getting what I'm saying? That this boundary violation inside of us is going to get worse. Now, when I say boundary violation, what I mean is the bad is in there. There's something wrong inside of us. And whether or not that has come just from a feeling that's emanated up within us. So, you're just going about your day, you're by yourself, and then all of a sudden you get this big whack of, I feel really helpless or powerless, or I feel no good, or I feel ugly, or I feel unworthy, or I feel, that's a signal. That's a signal. Or we might have the signal via life or situations that a disappointment happens in our life and we get this really big trigger inside us. Or it might be somebody in our face that says something or does something, and we feel that unworthiness or that helplessness or that brokenness or that powerlessness or even that rage or that anger or that distress, whatever that feeling is. And this is step one, is to acknowledge that when we have a trigger, we have a boundary violation. And what that means is, if we remember the container, let's say our body is the container, that we ideally wanted the container holding in the good and we wanted to keep out the bad. Something's not right in there. We have a boundary violation, whether or not it's just bubbled up from within or whether or not it's come to us from outside, because the truth is the outside event or person is actually just triggering off what is already in there. I promise you. And the more you get into this, the more you understand that. Because when you actually clean up your triggers, you can observe without the trigger and you know something's not right, and you can be in a mature, powerful container to deal with it. If you have a trigger, you're regressing back to an original wound that's in replay. It either keeps bubbling up, no matter how much chocolate cake you have, no matter how many times you go out and get drunk, no matter how many times you get on Facebook, no matter how many times you have sex with people, it's going to keep reappearing because, like the roof in your car, you haven't fixed it. And it's the same when we get the repeat patterns in our life, people hitting our triggers, and it isn't repeat, it's just a different face, a different situation, until we clean it up. So the first step is, a trigger means I have a boundary violation, and it means that if I don't go to it and do something about it, it's just going to be in repeat in my life. Now, what we need to do is we need to understand that step two is anything that is within me, any negative emotion is mine. It is my emotion. Because let's say you get that trigger come up, or somebody pushes it, or whatever, or however it happens. Now, if you want to hold the narcissist accountable, if you want to hold your parents accountable, you want to hold society accountable, you even want to hold the world or God accountable, well then the narcissist, your parents, that human being, society, the world, or God has got to fix it for you to be able to have any power or for you to feel better. And when we understand the Thriver orientation and how to do boundaries in a very powerful way, where we can master ourselves, where we can partner ourselves, we understand that any negative feeling, no matter how it got there, it's mine because it's in my body. We have to own it. We're not saying we're at fault for it. Our childhood programming happened to us. We weren't to blame for that. Okay, we're not to blame for abusive people being in our life that are a replay of the programming that we haven't been able to heal yet. This stuff happened to us unconsciously. We're not to blame, but we're saying that that painful feeling, emotion, when it's in my body, it is mine. I can claim it. And step number two is about claiming it. Step number two is, there's a beautiful mantra we can use for this, which is, I bless and accept this feeling. Now, immediately what that does is it puts us in our body in a self-partnering way where we are with this emotion. Now, if we don't do that, if we don't enter our body We can't start healing, self-partnering, and getting in control of ourselves. And if we're not in control of ourselves, life and situations are always going to be controlling us. We're going to be at the mercy of them. So this is huge when we do this. So we say, I bless and accept that feeling, and that immediately stops us from trying to self-avoid, which will mean the addictive choices that might give us some temporary relief, the choices outside of ourselves to numb the anxiety or the whatever the emotion is. That stops us doing that. It stops us going for the chocolate cake. It stops us going for whatever it is that's going to hurt us. It also stops us projecting and holding other people responsible for our emotions. That is the height of powerlessness when we do that. Think about that with a narcissist. We all did it. Is that when we held that person responsible for how we feel, which means our entire life, because our life is built from our emotional basis and beliefs. When we hold that person responsible, what we're saying is, you know, dear narcissist, crazy person who's wounded, who's never actually going to heal your wounds, who actually has no resources to be responsible to yourself, let alone myself, who has no ability to fix your own inner being, let alone mine, please sort this out and fix this, because until you do, I can't be whole and I can't be sane and I can't be healthy. Can you please see how insane and crazy and self-defeating that is? We all know how that game goes. It's horrendous. So when we come inside our body and we say, I bless and accept this feeling, and this is when we can start self-partnering. And, you know, this is how it goes for me. Before I can get to a quantum freedom healing session, which is my massive go-to, that's how I self-partner and up-level and reprogram belief systems. And until I can get to that, what I say to myself is, you know, Mel, I'm here. What do you need from me? I love you. I'm here to listen to you. How can I serve you? How can I help you right now? What do you need? And I talk to myself lovingly as I would talk to my own child that I adore. And immediately that anxiety starts evaporating, and I feel like I'm back in my body in control. So this is what we do. Now, the third step from this is we really, really need to detach. We need to detach to work out what is our truth about this thing that happened, this trigger that's come up. What is our truth? What do we want? What are our values? What are our alignment? What do we want to generate with ourselves and life here? Now, when you've got, this is easier to do if you've had the trigger come up from within you, much easier to do because you can just go off and process it or self-partner until you can deeply go and process and work it through and heal it. When you've got somebody in your face, you know, especially if it's a narcissistic, unreasonable person that's projecting significant wounds at you and smashing your wounds, your most vulnerable, insecure places, which is what narcissists do. That's why I call them aides, angels in disguise, because there is no better way to find your unhealed skirmishes than have a narcissist in your face smashing you with them. That's what they do. So when and this is what happens, you know, when you've got a narcissist that is just, you know, horribly out of bounds, and they hit a very deep, vulnerable wound for you, and it erupts open, you're not going to be acting like a mature adult person in the emotional container within you. You're going to be regressed back to that 2 or that 5-year-old or that 7-year-old or that 8-year-old, and that's why you're rageful. That's why you're in despair. That's why you're pleading. That's why you're devastated. That's why you're hyperventilating. That's why you are losing your No, I'm not going to swear. My name is not Richard. I am not going to swear on YouTube. That is why you are losing your stuff. Okay, and often it can be really hard to have control of that when you're losing your stuff. because a childhood wound has been triggered and you've regressed back into the panic, powerlessness, and helplessness of a child. So if you lose your stuff, you lose your stuff. You know, that's okay. But what can happen is then afterwards you can go away and you can really come inside and self-partner and really sort out this wound and really have the goal to up-level and heal it so that you can represent not as that wounded child, as a mature adult in your body, because that's going to start changing everything. So the whole purpose of detachment is so that we can work out what is our truth on this. And this is very, very powerful. Now, if you haven't established an inner identity because you've had everybody else controlling your life and you've been unconsciously handing that power over, it can be tricky to say, well, what is my right? What is my value? What do I really want in regard to this topic? And a really cool way to work that out is we know what we don't want. So let's say, you know, somebody's been hitting you with, you know, you're worthless, you do nothing, you don't care about me, or you cheat, or you lie, or, you know, all the projections and stuff. And you know you don't want that. You do not want to be accused. You don't want to be spoken to disrespectfully. So you get out your journal. I don't want to be accused. I don't want to be spoken to disrespectfully. I don't want to be not trusted. So what you do want is the opposite of that. What I do want is to be treated with respect. I want to be honored. I want to be believed. That's what I want. And then what happens is when you establish your truth and you know your truth, well, then you can show up in the situation where you can say as a me, as an I statement. So this is the next step. This is step number 4, where you show up in the I, me statements of, you know, I value myself and I deserve to be valued. I know I'm a person of integrity, and you know I know that my life is about having people in my life that respect and honor my integrity, who believe in my integrity, and I actually won't accept anything else because anything else is not my truth. And this is how we show up, and this is what we know. Now, if we've up-leveled and worked on our young wounds, because a 2 or 5-year-old is going to have a lot of trouble having those sorts of solid, mature adult beliefs, we might have to do the inner work on them, and that's what I love Quantum Freedom for. Or we can do a bit of fake it till we make it, where we might still be really terrified of rejection, abandonment, criticism, punishment, or annihilation, and show up and do courage anyway. And you can make big breakthroughs in the field in real time by doing that, as long as you don't derail and as long as you keep it. And we're going to keep talking about that. I'm a little bit of a chicken. Because I was a person that was heavily triggered, very emotionally involved, very reactive, very not in my power, and carried a lot of wounds. I found for me, the up-leveling made things a lot easier to walk out into life already being the state at an inner level so that I could reproduce it for real in life. I find that a lot easier than I'm not real good at faking it till I make it. You might be better at it. But what we do is we show up and we state our truth. So, you know, for example, let's say if somebody said to you, you're a piece of dirt and I don't like the way you treat me, and they're like, and then if you came back, well, I don't like the way you talk to me and you're really horrible to me, and, you know, that's not it. It is, I know I respect myself. My relationships, the truth for me is about being respected. This is how we talk boundaries. This is how we speak boundaries. Now, let's be very, very aware that sane people that aren't personality disordered as such, you know, even if they're selfish and even if they haven't been respecting boundaries, generally the humanity component in them can really feel a boundary. So, you know, let's imagine that you have stepped over the line and somebody said to you, you know, I respect myself, and I really require respect in a relationship, and this is what respect looks like for me. You would go, whoa, whew, I really feel where you end and I start, and I really feel what you need, and I have compassion for that. I have a lot of respect and admiration for that, actually. And I know that to meet you and have you in my life, I need to step up and meet you at that level. We feel that, we know that. Whereas if we're dealing with somebody with narcissistic personality disorder, you know, they require narcissistic supply as a drug. And what that means is they need to enmesh and dissolve boundaries, and they need to merge with you in a way that they can extract narcissistic supply. So they don't have respect for boundaries. And this is where this is very, very powerful, because if you can stand up in a healthy boundary, you will see who has got the ability to rise up and meet you at that level. And you find that when you develop yourself and you start growing up your young wounds and you start showing up authentically, so many people in your life, in fact, your whole life will change beyond description, are going to start raising up and meeting you at this beautiful level of honesty and truth. And the people that don't have the resources are going to do the three-ring circus. They're going to not be accountable. They're going to project. They're going to make excuses. They're going to justify. You know, a narcissist would say something to you like, oh, well, look at you. Who do you think you are, miss, you know, too big for your boots? What about my respect? You know, that's how it's going to go. They're going to play massive tit for tat. They're going to try to discredit your boundary, guilt you out of it, do whatever it takes for you to rip it down. And you know, when you're receiving that sort of behavior, forget it. No deal. It's like, I'm sorry, wounded child in an adult body who's never going to take responsibility for your wounds, who hasn't done the work, who doesn't look like you're ever going to. You can't meet me at a level that is healthy where you're not going to be projecting your wounds onto me and wounding me in my life. Now that I am up-leveling myself and I'm developing myself and I'm declaring the truth of my life, that is no longer any good for me. Yes, it's going to hurt. Yes, it's going to be difficult. Yes, I'm disappointed, but I am moving on. I'm leaving. I'm done. Because if I stay with you, I can't evolve. I can't heal. I can't get well. So that's what we understand. You'll see. I hope you're feeling this. Now, the next two steps are the hardest. They're really, really tough. They're tough. And development helps a lot. So step number 5 is we have to detach from any specific person or any group of people validating our boundary, our truth, or our values. So it goes like this. Let's just say that my girlfriends ask me about this a lot. It's really cute, and I so hope I can help them. You know, let's say they're dating and you meet a guy and he's really cute and you're hanging out a lot, you know, and you're kissing passionately and things are, you know, they're like getting a bit heated, but you really realize that you've only known him a short time. If you sleep with him too quickly, he mightn't have really bonded with you. You'd probably like to get to know him better before you bond with him by sleeping with him. In other words, you just don't want to sleep with him yet. And the thing is, you know, a really good boundary with that would be something like, you know, I only sleep with people when I have an exclusive commitment and when I've got to know them for a period of time. You know, that's what you would say. And you wouldn't say something like, well, what's your intentions? You know, are you just looking for a fling? Do you want something serious? That's so handing power over. You don't do that. It's just declare your truth. And let's say he doesn't validate you. Let's say he says, well, oh, I don't know if I can give you that. I need some time to think about that. You know, he doesn't validate you. And then you say, okay, well, look, that's fine. You know, look, no more kissing for tonight. I'll let you think about it. And You know, he didn't validate you. He didn't agree with you. So, and you really like this person, and you might drive away from that and you might go, oh my God, I've done the wrong thing. I shouldn't have said that so quickly. I shouldn't have said it so early. Maybe I should have just slept with him. Or maybe I should have just left earlier or not brought it up. And you start doing all these things in your head. And we can do this with any boundary that we put down, that if that person doesn't get it straight away, we can start panicking, or we might talk to other people about it and they might talk us out of it, and they might think that because they're just not developed enough to understand this stuff, or they don't even realize that people after they've been narcissistically abused really do need to define their values and their identity and their boundaries. It's something that's very important. And also too, with people in our life that have never been through narcissistic abuse, we know they can't get it. You know, they're just like, oh, just, you know, stop, get over it, or just leave him, or they, you know, they don't understand what we're doing or what we need to produce or heal at all. So it can be a bit of a lonely journey once you start stepping into boundaries and your values and your rights, because you need to realize that this is not about anybody else's values or rights. This is about your own. And the irony is when you get very clear and comfortable about that, and you start getting self-actualized and self-empowered, which is about self-partnering and self, and then producing your authenticity in the world, you realize that your life and your authenticity was never reliant on somebody else giving you validation. Now, as a child, that was very necessary. And if you were very lucky to have had that validation and that foundation and that grounding, you're probably not listening to this video, okay? For the people that didn't have that, we can't force our parents to fix that. But as adults, we need to reparent ourselves, and we need to up-level and heal this stuff so that we validate ourselves. We become that parent to ourselves. And once we start that validation process and we walk through life authentically, what we find is people start validating us in droves, because they start matching the inner validation that we're doing. So let's say that guy that, you know, went off and you know, you left him that night and he was like, well, you know, I don't know, I've got to think about this. Let's say, you know, you never hear from him again, or he comes back to you and says, well, look, I can't give you exclusivity at this point, or whatever. And you're not validated by him. But we know that we're not after quick fixes anymore. We're not after instant gratification quick fixes. An instant gratification quick fix will go, oh, I'll just sleep with him. Oh, well, you know, I really like him. He wasn't going to raise up. Oh, I'll just sleep with him and hope for the best. Cross that bridge when I get when I get there. We've got to get out of that stuff, because that stuff just damages us, and we are training life and others how not to treat us disrespectfully. But yet if we hold that boundary and validate ourselves and we say, well, great, you know, graduation, yay, you know, I walked it in real time. He didn't agree, but yay, power to me, yay. You know, you do that and you stand up, then what you'll start finding is that the people that come into your space want to commit. They totally get that boundary, and they're going to step up and go, hey, pick me, you know, because I'm the guy that's going to win your heart in a respectful way, and I want to give you exclusivity. I'd like you to be my girl. It's gorgeous, but we're not going to hit that until we validate ourselves. So that's that step. And the last step is we have to detach from any set outcome. It's very, very similar. It's very similar. But it's a little bit more extended. So I'll give you an example. Let's say, you know, somebody is treating you disrespectfully, and you say to them that I respect myself, and what that looks like in my life is, you know I deserve respect and to be treated to respectfully, and I won't accept anything less than that, than being respected. And let's say that person drives off, they go, they leave. And and you start panicking because it's that 2 or that 5-year-old or that 7-year-old inside you that's saying, oh my God, I've just been abandoned. I'm unloved, I'm unlovable, he doesn't love me. You know, I'm at real threat of love, approval, security and survival right now, and we can start panicking. And of course we want that person to ring us up and say, you know, look, honey, I'm so sorry. I do respect you. I love you. I'm just going to get ice cream and I'm coming home to give you a big cuddle. You know, that's what we want. Absolutely. We want, you know, the outcome to happen like this. But the truth is, if we haven't healed ourselves to a solid inner, if we haven't hit that place within ourselves, we're not going to get that, because life is ingenious in the way it is reflecting back to us how we need to evolve ourselves. If we haven't reached that solidness inside ourselves yet of being able to be, this is my state and truth regardless of what's going on out there. If we haven't hit that, well then he's not going to ring us up. He hasn't gone just to get ice cream and come home and give us a cuddle, you know, and we might be panicking about, oh my God, he's going off to see an ex-girlfriend, he's left me, I may never hear from him again, when's he going to ring me, all of that stuff. That's actually more likely to happen. That stuff is actually going on because you haven't as yet become a solid source of state to yourself. This is one of the biggest human illusions, is that we believed that we needed the outcome to reach the state. We needed him to be getting ice cream, come home and give us a cuddle for us to feel whole. And that's not the truth. The truth is that we can be a state, we can be a declaration of our values and our truth, knowing that we are connected to a vast reservoir, which is all of the resources of life. We don't need him to show up to be it. We don't. We've got all of life that is going to unfold and meet us at the level of who we're being with ourselves. And when we do enough work on ourselves, which really is about healing those young childhood wounds, growing them up to a mature adult, and we reach that state of, oh, this solidness, this relief, I get it, I know it, I'm living this, I'm breathing it. Life will, in the perfect way, in the perfect time, will rearrange itself, in my experience, to reflect that back to me. It may not be him. And we even get to the point we go, you know what, if you're going to go self-medicate with an ex-girlfriend right now, why would I want you anyway? Why would I want you in my life? I don't. You know, that's not the level that I'm playing life at. It really isn't. So we get, when we become the state before the outcome, we are in ultimate, infinite power. We are being the creators that we are supposed to be, because we are signaling through our state how life will show up in our experience. We cannot get life from the outcome to the state. We can, but it'll keep falling over and dropping off, and it's only quick fixes, and it's not durable. It's not going to continue generating. Generally what will happen is we'll get the outcome to get a state, it'll fall over, it'll sabotage, and we will always go back to our inherent state, our unconditional state, our state that is not dependent on outside experiences, or our state that is reliant on outside experiences. We have to be independent of that. I hope you're understanding. So when we can do this is the thrivers in the community. You know, I did some wonderful thriver radio shows with people like Preemie and people like Nora, who got custody and property settlements because they up-leveled and they became the state of I'm whole, I'm secure, I'm at peace. I actually don't even need those things to happen for me to be the state I am at. It takes a lot of development, it takes a lot of work. They worked NARP program a lot to get there. But when they got there, outside life had to rearrange itself to match their state, which is how life is always going for us anyway, if we haven't realized that. So these are the steps. Now, I'm well aware that this might bring up a whole heap of questions for you, right? I'm sure it will. And what I want to do is I want to continue these boundary videos. I want to do more on this because it's such a huge topic and it's everything. So I'd love you in the comments to ask the questions and tell me what you'd like me to address in further videos about this. And I'm going to be in Japan next week, and I'm so excited because I'm going to do a Thriver TV episode there, and it possibly will be about boundaries, and maybe I can get my great friend, my beautiful friend, Simone Waddell, to help me with that. Like, we might do a bit of stuff together. I haven't even asked her. Hopefully, Simone, you're up for that. If not, you know, I'll just do another episode on my little own self, just by me. Again, like I usually do. That's cool, whatever. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun exploring this deeper. And I know it's going to help you a lot. And so, you know, I hope this has really helped. And please, as always, I would love you to connect to my resources. And what's really exciting is the 3 key webinar groups that I do, because we do a lot of deep workshopping on this stuff, on the up-leveling, on finding those young wounds and growing ourselves up into powerful whole adult containers, which changes everything about how we can heal from narcissistic abuse. So I'd love you to join me in the next one. And you know the drill, how it always goes, which is keep smiling and keep healing and keep thriving, because there is nothing else to do. So until next week, lots of love. Bye-bye.